Hi, I'm Kenny Anderson, Director of Multicultural Affairs for the City of Huntsville, and welcome to Impact. Each week we bring you information about exciting things that are happening in our community, and today will be no different. I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to introduce to some of the community a couple of individuals who are doing some really important things for young people. And they're actually here today representing two different organizations that have come together in partnership to strengthen their ability to improve the quality of life for children everywhere. Pat Wynn is Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama. Welcome to the broadcast, Pat.
Thanks for having me.
You doing all right, man?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Man, I've been waiting to have you here for a long time. So you're in the hot seat today. You know that.
That's good stuff.
That's all right. Good. Do you feel the heat?
I feel it.
Good. Well, we know you burn in the community, so it's all right, man. It's good to have you here. Frank Williams is managing partner with the Landers, McClarty, I got to read this, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Subaru. Did I get them all?
Yes, sir.
All right. I want to make sure I fully represent you, brother.
Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
Yeah, real well.
Good. Good to have both of you guys here because this gives us an opportunity to showcase one of the premier organizations, I say, on the planet as it relates to working with young people. Having had a personal long-term history with this organization as a mentor, as a board member, as a community supporter, and I'm always sounding the trumpet when it comes to Boys and Girls Club. I just love this organization and what it does and what it represents, and I think the partnership that we're going to talk about today is exemplary of just that very thing. But Pat, there are a couple of people that don't know about the Boys and Girls Club, and we want to let those two people know what the Boys and Girls Club is and why this organization exists for young children.
Yeah. Well, we're primarily an after-school program during the school year, and during the summer we're an all-day program. But Boys and Girls Club they're designed to go into communities where kids need us the most. A lot of times we're in low-income communities, rural communities, Indian reservations, and military bases all across the world. So you know, Boys and Girls Club has a rich history. We've been in existence since. For over 100 years nationally, over 76 years here locally. We started in Madison County in 1938. So Boys and Girls Clubs have served thousands and thousands of kids. We have a lot of rich history and people that attended Boys and Girls Clubs, and I myself was a club kid. So we're very proud of the work we do, and it's personal because when you were a club kid, you know, you understand that the difference you can make in young people's lives for the people that made a difference in my life being a club kid as well.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned being a club kid, and that kind of resonates with me because I know that growing up on the Lower East Side of New York in public housing, I was with the Police Athletic League, and we played softball every summer, and they had all these great opportunities for us to be able to have a place, a safe place to be off the street. And we know that the Boys and Girls Club in this day continues to be the positive place for young boys and girls. And Frank, of course, you've had similar experiences too on your journey. I'm always fascinated by your story. Just tell us a little something about your journey.
I think, you know, important thing what Pat said is, you know, it has a history that, you know, a lot of folks maybe in today's time forget. My history comes from the same background as Pat. You know, I could get one meal a day and had no activities to do in the evening or in the afternoon, and one place I could go to was a Boys and Girls Club. And I think when you look in your past, there's things that catalyst your career and your life, and that was one place because we had no other place to go, and we had no other place where folks were giving us a meal, letting us play games, things that we couldn't afford. And the healthiness of a young person is real critical as they proceed in their life. So it started with me and the Boys and Girls Club, so I got a passion for it, and I think it helps our community. And we get distorted. Our communities are poor all over. They're not just in the inner city. They're in the country. They're in the military base. So it's a lot of work to do, but I love it.
Yeah, and Pat, you said that you've come, I'm saying you've come full circle as a club kid. You're now executive director of the local club, doing a fantastic job, by the way, with your team, as well as a great board. And I know those things are very important to have as a part of that too. But that story is repeated over and over again. I mean, there are miles and miles of people, literally, around this world who have been touched by the Boys and Girls Club. We know Denzel Washington is a national spokesman for the club. I mean, why are these things so important, and why does it resonate so much with people when you start talking about the Boys and Girls Club, which I know you have a chance to talk about on a regular basis?
Well, I think it's important because, you know, our kids are our future. They're everything, you know, in our next generation. And a lot of times there's a bleak picture painted of our next generation. But there are kids that are doing positive things. the thing that kind of gets to us the most is those things don't make the news. A lot of the negative activity make the news, but we have kids that are growing up in inner city, bad places, but that are doing great things in the community. They're leaders, and they're going to be our next leaders of this country. And that's the thing that Boys and Girls Club, that's what we do. We produce leaders at Boys and Girls Club. Locally, Bud Kramer was a club kid. Rex Reynolds was a club kid. So we have a rich history with just our alum here locally in Huntsville.
That's right. And you continue to make sure that people are aware of that so that people don't just see this as kind of the charity that people just feel sorry for.
Right,
Sure.
right.
I mean, this is a substantive opportunity for young children to develop character
Right.
and to experience things that they may not be exposed to on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And of course, you do it on a daily basis. So the club is closed very few times a year.
Very few times, very few times. You know, we serve over 750 kids a day, every day during the school year, and over 1,000 a day during the summer days. So we're very busy. We have a lot of kids, a lot of moving parts, and we play a pivotal part in after-school care for our kids, especially kids that come from latchkey parents and working parents. So we stand in the gap for those kids, otherwise wouldn't have a structured after-school program.
Yeah, and one of the misnomers, Frank, is that kids that go to the Boys and Girls Club don't have family, they don't have a mom or dad that's supportive of them, doesn't care about them. I'm talking about the stereotypical
Correct.
kinds of perceptions people have. But oftentimes, like Pat said, this is a kid whose parent is working hard, has 2-3 jobs just to survive. And here is the Boys and Girls Club being a bridge between that child's dreams, that parent's ambitions for their child, and the community that child will one day become a leader in.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's so important.
Well, I think Pat, Pat, we couldn't tell you how much in a half an hour, but the thing that we miss, math, science, things that they measure that never gets told. In the last couple of years, the annual focus has been how do we measure what we do? And the critical part of what everybody doesn't hear about the Boys and Girls Club, it ain't just about where you go, what you do. Inside of that is math, is science, are critical elements for anybody to be successful in this United States or in the world. So Pat probably can elaborate a little bit on that, but that is one of the highest things we've done in the last couple of years, which makes us as partners to make sure we continue to partner with these guys to help facilitate some funds.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that partnership, and this is one of the reasons why I really look forward to having this opportunity. I know that Landers, I'm going to do this right, Landers, McClarty, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and Subaru, under your guidance and leadership, has been very philanthropic in this community, and you deem personally that as a very important priority as a head of a business and as a part of a community. And I'm curious, first of all, why Boys and Girls Club became important to you. And then, Pat, I want you to talk a little bit about the partnership.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that what I had to decide, Kenny, is how do you take revenue that you've redeemed from a community and reinvest back to make sure that it helps that community, not for charity, for a great cause that long term will help the business and the community. And a lot of times there's so many charity organizations out there that can do bigger things. But when you talk a small community, the local base needs to be highly invested. So what I did was try to find somebody that I thought was doing work that needed a partner that would be consistent over time. That he could pick up a phone and say, hey, we need this, we need transportation, we need support, we need volunteers. And I found one that I think is one of the better leaders in our market, which is Pat and his organization, which if the numbers are staggering, the success that he has done with that organization, as well as what's happening with the kids. And you think about 7 years ago I was here, 7 years later, some of those kids are going off to college. 7 years later, some of those kids are working back in their clubs. 7 years later, some of the communities are reaping the benefits from it. So we couldn't have chose a better partner.
Yeah, and Pat, talk about the partnership and what it means to you.
It's everything, in this day and time, the economy it's always getting tougher. We're on a road to recovery, but there's still a lot of gaps and lapses in terms of federal funding. As a nonprofit, nobody's immune to it. We've lost a lot of federal dollars. So it's very important that we have people like Frank Williams and his company to step up and be a champion for Boys and Girls Clubs. Nonprofits cannot exist without champions in the community that are giving back and supporting the efforts of what's going on in the local nonprofits, because we can't do it without the businesses. We're tasked to go out and raise dollars to serve the kids. each and every day at the Boys and Girls Clubs. And without people like Frank Williams and the Lance McClarty group, we couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
Couldn't get it done.
And it's really all about each one reaching one. It's all about that communitarianism where somebody recognizes there's a need and that the ability to do for others is really exponentially increased by us coming together. Let's find a good project. Let's find the right project. And let's pour into these individuals' lives in such a way that you actually get a huge payback on the other end. You know, you talked about just the whole notion of the after-school piece that the Boys and Girls Club provides. And we've seen the statistics about young people who don't have that kind of direction and guidance after school, higher levels of crime and juvenile delinquency and illiteracy and all of these other challenges that actually bleed into their young adulthood life and create challenges as it relates to the prison population and all those things. So this is extremely important. People often say we pay on one end or the other end.
That's right.
And wouldn't that front end be such a great investment?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
Well, I think we missed that because you forget these kids are not kids who are not looking for that opportunity. It's always believed that they don't want that opportunity. You got to remember they need a place to go. You know, with the economy that it's been for the last 10, 12 years, reaching more ethnicity, reaching some of the poverty levels that it has reached, it takes a decade to recover. So without organizations like that and folks that are really staying the course, we would be in a lot worse shape. So I just appreciate the leadership that he's given because, you know, he's got a great degree. He could have done something different. So unfortunately, we've got lucky people in this community that are really helping us achieve this.
Yeah, and Pat, you know, the commitment of volunteers. And you mentioned earlier about how the community partnership, you could not do without that.
Correct.
But any nonprofit knows, and I've been in the nonprofit field for many years working in mental health, and I know that we recruited volunteers from our local schools and our churches and other civic organizations, and you know, you can't really put a value on the investment of time that they make to the process and then the finished product. Say something about those volunteers.
You know, I think it goes without saying what volunteers bring to any nonprofit. I think, but more than anything, it's that connection. That one-on-one connection. I think that's the most powerful, you know, testament to being a volunteer. When you go into any organization, not just Boys and Girls Clubs, and you create a connection with a young person that may be lost, they may be getting bullied, they may have a lot of issues going on at home, and you make a connection and you can save that young person because you can teach them the right steps to take, give them the right advice, because they don't always have that personal confidence to reach out to. And I think that's bigger than anything. You can't measure that, but you can save some lives and you can get a kid going in the right direction with that one-on-one relationship that you can build with a young person volunteering.
And you haven't reached a point where you're saying, we don't need any more volunteers, we have too many people coming out to help out. So,
Never.
So I know, Frank, you would chime in with this also. We need more people to step up to the table.
You know, one of the biggest things we do is homework help at the Boys and Girls Clubs each and every day. And, you know, with Dr. Wadinsky and those guys did a great job with the laptops, you know, they're trying to eliminate the digital divide. So, you know, one thing we do, we work very closely with Huntsville City Schools and getting access to their grades, and we work with the teachers as well. But that homework time is needed for one-on-one instructional help each and every day after school.
Yeah.
We can never get enough volunteers for one-on-one help.
And you know, it's not enough, and I think we all realize this, so we're kind of singing to the choir in this way.
Right.
But I always say the choir probably sometimes needs to sing a little louder, a little bit more on key, you know, and just keep singing, don't stop.
Right.
But the reality is that we realize that the gifts that we've been given and the blessings that we've experienced are not just for our own benefit, but to share with other people.
Right.
And the idea that because we have been given so much, and much is really an individual assessment. You know, it's not much based on some other person, but the much that you've been given. You've been given an opportunity to learn. Now give something back, especially for those that are degreed people. You know, I always say, what good is it to be a smart, wise, or intelligent person if that's all you are in life? That's all you do. And you take your smarts and intelligence and use it to build yourself. I mean, why not pour it into somebody else's life? And we're not talking about a huge commitment of time either. And we're not talking about shaking up somebody's life so much that they've got to change all these things about their life. They actually can integrate this process of helping someone else into their lives.
The wisdom is needed. I think as a business leader, you think you don't have the time to do it because you've got so much to do with your quotas, your business, your day-to-day, your family, your kids. But as you continue to grow with wisdom, you realize how much more of that is needed with what's around you, the neighbor next door, the kid who's at the Boys and Girls Club. So I think when you talk volunteers, that wisdom, that stewardship, all that wisdom that we've attained is needed for another generation. And I think one thing you don't see behind the scenes, the volunteers that we get, it's all colors, it's race, it's kids, it's young, it's old, and it identifies with what this United States is all about. So it's a big deal to get wisdom incorporated with these kids as they continue to try to navigate life.
Yeah. Pat, I know you can't say this, but I will. Huntsville and Madison County would be a different place without the Boys and Girls Club. The Boys and Girls Club have been a constant in this community, as you said, for over 70 years. And it continues to remake itself and to assess itself and to continue to create great partnerships and find ways to continue to do more and more and more. If I were to ask you right now, what are your 2 or 3 greatest needs? What would you say to people that are listening today?
Well, with any nonprofit, finances will be number one. And like we just talked about, just more volunteer help.
Yeah.
And those 2 things are always critical for nonprofits.
Yeah.
Trying to raise more dollars to serve more kids, to make a larger impact with the kids you serve, and more volunteers for more one-on-one instructional help.
Yeah, and there's a pretty large percentage of the funds that are raised that doesn't go to administrative support.
Exactly.
It goes actually to the kids and trying to make their lives better.
Absolutely.
I think that's important for people to know
absolutely.
also.
Yeah, that's one thing they do extremely well. They run a very lean organization, very thin, which allows the dollars to go directly to the kids, which we think those dollars are always, when somebody says donate, we think of large money. It's $100, it's $50, it's $25, and you time every individual. And I recommend everybody give something to their own community in a way of this, in this direction, because it will come back to you. If you get involved, you'll feel it, you'll see it, you'll touch it. If you go to the events that we have calendar year, you'll just get a clear idea what happens with these kids from start to finish.
And you all are part of the combined federal campaign, too.
That's correct.
So people that are working for the federal government can actually designate the Boys and Girls Club right here in Huntsville as a recipient of funds that can help them out in a very painless process to be able to do that. So there are all kinds of creative ways to make these things happen. I know you also accept gifts in terms of people who have passed and want to do estate planning and that kind of thing to build around the Boys and Girls Club. And what a great opportunity that would be.
You shared something that you said the community would be different. I come from a community way up north that the community has a lot of crime, a lot of massive activity, but it's because of these organizations in this particular community in Madison, Huntsville, that just does not always get the recognition, but how much do we keep off the streets? How many kids believe in the community like we believe in it, strictly because of the work that's getting done? Yeah. So it would be a totally different community. All the good things we hear about it happens because on this end and the other end.
Absolutely. We've got maybe 5 minutes or so left in the broadcast, but I wanted you to just maybe summarize for somebody listening out there today who's thinking about some place to send their kid after school and they want to kind of know, all right, what's a typical experience like on a given day at the Boys and Girls Club? And I know experiences are different, but just generally, what might that child expect to experience by going to the Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, that's a great question. We always say at the club that kids vote with their feet. Because they don't have to come to the Boys and Girls Club. I've had teachers come in and say, oh, the kids are so well behaved. And they ask, well, how do you do that? I said, it's all about relationships. And the kids, they don't have to be here. They want to be here. And so the typical day is, kids always get a healthy snack, and the first thing we do is homework. We call it power hour. And then everybody in the club is doing homework time. And after that, it's just instructional rotation, just like school. You stay with your age groups. We have a rotation schedule, and they go from arts and crafts to the computer lab, to the education department, of course, to the gymnasium. And it's all about bonding and learning character development, but having fun with a purpose.
And it's a well-rounded experience that they get. As you mentioned, things across the spectrum. They're not just doing one thing. And you also bring people from the community that they can actually connect with and build those kinds of relationships with, which I think is so important also. in that whole
And I think
process.
that's one of the things that we do really well too, is that mentoring aspect, is getting kids to have tangible role models, somebody they can identify with, somebody that looks like them, and they understand that they could take the same path to success.
Yeah.
I think I learned some from going to Boys and Girls Club with Pat. You know, I've got 2 kids in college, but you know, you think you're raising them right, and then you start realizing the one thing they demand as a kid, small, medium, and large, is respect. And what I like about the Boys and Girls Club, it gives the respect to these kids no matter where they come from. In return, they invest, which is them, and then they give us an opportunity to mold them from there. And that's what you learn about kids as you raise them. They want respect too,
Yeah.
no matter how young or how old they are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you have a wonderful, you mentioned a few times character development and leadership development kinds of tracks that people
Right.
experience. You have a Youth of the Month and then a Youth of the Year initiative as well, which really allows you to highlight some young person in the club monthly who's doing something,
Right.
but also over the course of that year. And you've had some phenomenal Youths of the Year over the years that have had some amazing experiences. What does that element of this whole process mean for you?
You know, it's those moments when you realize this is why you do it. I'm in contact with all of our kids that have been Youth of the Year, and we have one at Yale right now. We have one at Alabama, have 2 or 3 at UNA, we have one at Vandy, and I'm in constant contact with these kids. And when they call, when they come back in the summertime, they want to work in the club, and you look at these kids, you feel like a proud parent.
Yeah.
You know, because you know that you played a role in them going to Yale. You know, kids from the inner city, we have a young man at Yale right now getting his master's in divinity.
Wow.
So, you know, those type of things like that, that's when you realize why you do what you do every day.
Yeah, and those things, Frank, are not insignificant. Those are some of the things we don't want people to get lost on, as it relates to why they get involved, why they invest their time and their resources, because this is the product. I mean, you don't get involved because you want this specific outcome,
For sure.
but you do want to pour into them in such a way that they then have choices available to them, that they have these options that are much broader than they may have ever imagined. And because of the kinds of programming that they experience when they come to a Boys and Girls Club every day, and because somebody cares enough about their life, it makes a tremendous difference for them.
Critical thing in success is stay consistent and focus on 1 or 2 things. So how I align my partnership is stay consistent. And in consistency, I got to see a kid and almost cry that's going to Yale. You know how hard it is to get into those environments. But it was our consistency that kid was allowed to consistently travel that route and that journey. And that's what's being produced.
Yeah. And the message is always, I think, we want the best for you. We're doing what we're doing because we want the best for you. Now, we all understand that life has choices.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you're going to choose a particular outcome in life. But the reality is that whatever that outcome is will be yours to take accountability for. And it won't be because we held anything back.
Right.
You know, we gave you all the love, direction, attention, compassion, concern that you needed. We gave you all the tools that we could give you to be successful, and then it was up to you as to whether or not you wanted to exercise those options. And so, and fortunately, with the Boys and Girls Club, so many of your young people exercise those options. And that's just a wonderful thing. I mean, you probably have a Hall of Fame in Madison County, as you mentioned a few people before, of people who, including yourself, who've been Boys and Girls Club members over the years. And this is just one of the most powerful resources I think that Huntsville has. We talk about our technology, which is great. We talk about our missile defense system, that's great. We talk about all of the great things that are happening in Research Park, but there's something happening in clubs all over the city every day that make a profound impact on young people's lives. And I'm very proud that the Boys and Girls Club is a part of this community.
Yes, sir.
Frank, there may be, in the last few minutes we have, there may be some businesses out there, somebody's watching the show this afternoon or this evening or this morning, and they've been touched by what they've heard, and they're wondering how can they make a difference. And you alluded to something earlier, and I just wanted to maybe follow up on that one last time. But sometimes people think about, I can't give $1,000, you know, so I'm just going to forget about giving. But it may be $10 here, maybe $25 there, maybe a one-time gift of $100. It could be a commitment of $1 a month. I mean, every dollar counts in the process of trying to help young people, and every minute counts. So if you say, I can't give you an hour a week, but I can give you half an hour a week. talk to those people that might be thinking about how they can get involved this afternoon.
Well, I think the critical thing for me is to focus on one aspect first, and that's the businesses. I think every business should not just take in the revenue, store the revenue, return investment to just themselves as CEOs, as partners, as managing partners, as well as employees that reap the benefits of what I believe is a very rich community. It's highly important that you segment your money, and I think you do have to sporadically put your money in different things. But when it comes to kids and investment, that's one thing you have to do. And I think that's a missing element that happens with businesses. They're invested in so many other things, and that's good. But you have to take a portion of that. If it's just $500 per business, or $1,000, or $1,500, that is a small request for the return on investment you're getting out of a community. So I think that's what the businesses can do. From just a regular person, $10, $20, $50, $100. Add it up with the community we have. It adds up.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is go to the website, go to one of our annual events, look at the results. We post them. We tell you what we do. And that's something Pat probably should elaborate before he closes out. We tell you what we do at all times in terms of the results with the kids, in terms of the investment.
Yeah, Pat, what I want you to do is, because we are out of time, if you can give people the website and a phone number to reach you, that way they can get all of that information and really understand that whatever investment people make, you're not going to waste people's time, you're not going to waste their money, and you're going to give them a return on that investment consistently in the lives of those young people. So tell us where people can get that information.
Yeah. Well, it's www.bgcnal.com, and our phone number is 256-534-6060. And like Frank said, we have outcome measurements, and we produce monthly reports for our outcomes, the differences we're making in our kids. And we're always trying to sharpen the saw. We're always trying to improve our product. We're always trying to improve our package that we get out to the public and our donors so they can see their return on investment.
Yeah.
So that's something we're always trying to improve. You know, with Frank and guys like this and our board members, the great people on our board, great minds, and they're always challenging us as a staff to improve our tools of measuring our success and our outcomes.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job, and when I say you, I know you'd be the first one to say that it's a team effort.
Absolutely.
And that you give total credit to all of those people who come to the table day after day, month after month, year after year, and make this possible. And that includes people like Frank. And I just thank both of you for the commitment that you make to this community and the work that you do. Pat Wynn, he's Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Come back and see me soon, man.
All right, we
got
will.
a lot to talk about, man. You always got things going on, and I love it. Yeah. And Frank Williams, I'm going to do this one more time. Landis McClarty, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and Subaru, managing partner. Thank you for being here. Come back and see us, man.
No problem. I'll be back.
Let us know what's going on. We want to thank you for being a part of our broadcast today, and we hope that you will continue to support this broadcast impact as we continue to share information about great things that are happening in and around your community. In the meantime, we hope that you have a great week, and remember, as always, knowledge is better than riches. Have a great day, and we'll talk again.